Well, it's a pleasure to present the data on Dutch teledermatology, and John was presenting the data of Nina Eminovic. I've been her co-promoter in this study, and I can mention on this study, the people here were randomized, all the practices, and they did 100% for all the patients, teledermatology or not, and that's why the reduction was so low of 20%, and I think selection by the GP is therefore very important. And that is, I will also present data which was done on my second co-worker, Job van der Heijden, who is here and who's part of our R&D team, and also Esme Tensen is here. She is now the third PhD on teledermatology. So if you have questions, you can, they're sitting here. So if you have questions on the research, please feel free to talk with them. I do have some conflict of interest. We do teledermatology a lot, and the data that I present here are mostly on the work that we did in SAIS Telemedical Center. It's just because we are, let's say, by far the leader in the Netherlands. So we are, times are changing. My son doesn't know. Does not know. So, and this is also, you know, what are we doing? This was my waiting room when I was a dermatologist. So in fact, why are we thinking of doing teledermatology? Because we don't mind getting fewer people in our waiting room as long as we have more time for the things that we've been trained for and that we like and that are difficult and that the patients need us for. And it's questionable as to whether this is really our job as a dermatologist. And we should take care that we should not do too much work. And this work will be increasing, you know, because there is an elderly population, and there is a fast increase in healthcare costs if we do not change healthcare delivery rigorously. Yeah. So we need some paradigm shift. And well, teledermatology, it's very easy, you know. But let's say with SAIS now in the Netherlands, we work with over 11,000 health workers. This is 6,000 GPs, which is about 2/3 of all the GPs in the Netherlands. And they see 250,000 patients per day through intelligent internet, not only in teledermatology, but also in ophthalmology, cardiology, pulmonology, e-mental health, and other fields. Publication of Job van der Heijden, a 75% reduction of physical referrals. Response time, 4.6 hours. Learning effect in 91% of the cases, and a 20 to 40% reduction in costs. And I will come to that later. This is important. What we see is, and this is every year is the same. When people start doing teledermatology, they go up. GPs do about 25 teleconsultations yearly. And then afterwards, it goes down. And in the beginning, we were a little bit afraid. And we phoned them and we said, well, you don't like us anymore, or you don't like to do teledermatology. Well, what do you think their answer was? Sorry? We've learned. We know it. And this is even more striking. We compare the group who has done over 3 years of teledermatology, and we compare them with the GPs who have never done teledermatology. You see an increase in referrals to the physical referrals to the hospital, and those who do teledermatology, you see a decrease. This is bending the curve. I'm frightening you again, you know. So, but this is what's happening. These are just our figures. It's self-limiting, teledermatology. It goes down because the GP, they learn. So now I will update you with some results. We have done over 115,000 teledermatology and teledermoscopy consultations in 7 years now. There's an obligatory question, did you learn from this teleconsultation? They do learn from the teleconsultation. Of course, normally they would refer a patient to the hospital, and after 8 weeks they would get a letter back with the diagnosis and what has been done with the patient. With teledermatology, within 5 hours, they get their own picture that they've been taking themselves back with the history, with the diagnosis, and also an advice what they should do, and this advice they have to follow up themselves. So any better schooling, I don't know. This is schooling in the job. And they considered it to be helpful. Our mean response time is now 5.3 hours, and a little bit longer in teledermoscopy. And patients, they love it. And we just had a research and this is the best way of how to validate the patient perceptions, just if they would recommend it to another person. In 96% of the cases, they would recommend teledermatology to other people. Oh, here, 87%. And, well, still, and I will go to that a little bit later, we avoid 72% of the referrals in teledermatology and 69% in teledermoscopy. So what we always do, and again, this is an obligatory question, that the GP has to answer this question. Would you have referred this patient if teledermatology were not available? So it's used in 70% of the cases. The GP uses teledermatology in order to avoid a physical referral. And this is about the same in teledermoscopy. And indeed, again, an obligatory question after the teleconsultation, do you still refer the patient to the physically to the hospital? In 72%, the GP states, no, I'm not referring. So there's a 72% reduction, which is about the same in teledermoscopy. This is additional. Lowering a threshold, and this is what health insurance companies, of course, are afraid of, that we are lowering threshold, that we are increasing costs. But we can see that in 30% of the cases, the patient would not have been referred, and of these cases, 70% are indeed referred. But in my opinion, this is quality improvement. You know, these patients needed to be seen. So altogether, we have a much better triage system for patients to be seen physically. If we look at, we also ask the GPs to make a diagnosis, a preliminary diagnosis. Dermatitis, eczema, mycosis, other disorders of the skin, disorders of skin. These are, let's say, this is the international classification of diseases. Well, I'm not going to mention, but this is all familiar to you. I'm sure you have a dermatological background. So, but it's quite similar to what the dermatologist states as a diagnosis. They both need to state a diagnosis. And this is the same in teledermoscopy. The only thing is that although the division is the same, it's not always the same per patient. So there's a difference of 60%. There's only agreement in about 55%. So in 45%, there's non-agreement, the diagnosis of the GP and the diagnosis of the dermatologist. So that, for me, confirms the use of teledermatology and teledermoscopy. What has led to this uptake of teledermatology in the Netherlands? I think one of the main reasons is that it is implemented as a full service. So it's not only the the provision of a platform. It's not only IT, but it's complete, let's say, the GPs, they work with their local dermatologist that they would normally refer the patient to physically. But also, the GPs, they are trained to do teledermatology. They are trained to make proper pictures. They are also, and they are monitored. And also the dermatologists are monitored. If a patient does not, if a dermatologist does not answer the teleconsultation in time, he or she is phoned, please respond to this teleconsultation. What is also important, that it is embedded in a legal system. In this case, like SciES is a hospital. SciES is a digital hospital, only delivering care with the use of intelligent internet. So in a way, SciES is Airbnb of healthcare. The only difference between SciES and a regular hospital is, in a regular hospital, the patient comes to the hospital, but in SciES, the hospital comes to the patient. So the GP is employed by the telemedical center, and the dermatologist is also employed by the telemedical center. And this telemedical center has a liability for the whole process. So the patient is secured that whatever happens in this process, there's one liable instance, which is the digital hospital. And so in this way, it makes it also easier because this telemedical center just contracts as any regular hospital, but only at lower prices. So, and of course, there's quality assurance. I think this is important if you want to set up a telemedical center or a telemedical service. So I showed you this one before. With the use of teledermatology, I often say that the medical center that I work for is the biggest hospital in the Netherlands, now working with 11,000 health workers, servicing 250,000 patients, with a growth rate now of 30%, and the only reason why it does not grow faster is budget limits. So all kind of care in the Netherlands is budgeted, but we, or let's say these services, they grow as fast as the budget is granted by the health insurance companies. Thank you so much.